Hello folks, this is Joseph E. Farrell, and we have yet another video blog today, and I'm kind of following up on the theme I touched on yesterday with sustainability and the carbon footprint satellite Astrium that the Europeans are going to try and orbit, and how that indicated that the elite is locked into a kind of a backward paradigm by the nature of the case. Well, I wanted to single out that article because there's another very good article over at Alex Jones's website, Infowars.com. This is an article by Tony Cartalucci, and again, I'll link the article in the website version of the blog. The article is entitled Pentagon Fears Global Technological Progress. And this article is really very good, very well thought out, and reasoned very closely. And I wanted to draw your attention to some things in this article that I think kind of drive home the theme that I was talking about yesterday, that technological progress does indeed show a threat to the Western oligarchical elite. And it's very interesting because there's two paragraphs in this article, and I want to read them to you. It's under a section heading called The True Fear of Oligarchs. Quote, America will always be able to obtain or produce the latest military weapon systems, devise the most advanced defenses, and maintain the ultimate deterrent against unprovoked attacks. America's only threat is what stands against its ability to meddle at will around the globe, projecting its power beyond its borders on behalf of the corporate financier oligarchs that direct Western policy. Losing this ability threatens the parasitic monopoly-based economic system of the West and the power base of the corporate financier oligarchs that depend on it. Indeed, the threat technology poses to the elite goes beyond military hardware. It includes anything that challenges the West's monopoly over power, finances, resources, manufacturing, distribution, media, and health. While the Pentagon is planning global hit squads and cyber brigades, the global oligarchs are resorting to draconian legislation such as SOPA and ACTA, using legal concepts such as intellectual property to maintain its monopoly by controlling the very ideas from which all innovation and progress stem. This includes everything from media to medicine, genetic codes, and technical processes. What can't be curtailed using the excuse of intellectual property will be done through regulation regarding environmentalism, health, and safety. True technological progress is being made at breakneck pace, and just like General Dempsey points out in regards to weapons, this technology is propagating both horizontally and vertically in ways never before imagined. And all of this is true. I think that's a profound analysis, because what all of this legislation really is, the intellectual property legislation particularly, what it really is an attempt, number one, to stifle, of course, free discussion, the quick, free flow of ideas back and forth. And number two, much more importantly, and they've put their finger right on it in this article, much more importantly, it's to stifle technological progress, because that progress is proliferating across the board. It's proliferating around the world. And at the beginning of this article, they raise a very, very interesting point, and it's a point I've mentioned before in connection with the post-war development of Nazi technology. And that is that the kind of technology represented by projects like the Bell is a technology that, when you really get down to it, is not all that difficult to engineer. And if it is correct to say that this technology is a technology that can literally engineer the fabric of space-time locally, then of course that means you've got, number one, right there, a new kind of energy source, and number two, you've got a tremendous weaponization potential. And it's a technology, therefore, that can proliferate easily into private hands. And this is precisely what this article points out at the very beginning, is that the military's concern here is that this technological progress makes it possible not only for rogue nation states to pose threats to the security of the United States and its oligarchical elite, but more importantly, it enables groups that have no borders, like the mafia, like the Japanese yakuza, like international terrorists, like militant Islamic groups or brotherhoods, secret societies, fraternities, anything like this, now becomes a potential bidder and player on the field because of their potential possession of some of this technology. So in other words, the elite is resorting, and this is a very insightful article. The elite is resorting to the tactic of trying to get to the point where they can at least curtail technological progress and channel it so that they can more easily monitor these things. And in fact, if I think if they had their way, they would try to bring a halt to it altogether and just sort of leave everybody and civilization itself stuck more or less in the current stage of technological development. And of course, that's not going to happen. The problem is as we've seen throughout history, humans will inevitably find some technological or other method around all of these attempts at control, at corralling and culling, and so on and so forth. So the military here, I think, is assuming an interesting role, because you'll note the other implication of this article is that the military is now having to project sociological consequences of the developments of these technologies, and these projections, these sociological projections, now have to be factored into the way that they respond and anticipate and plan for, so to speak, the next war. This is something new and very unprecedented in military history. It's led a lot of researchers like Nick Begich, excuse me, to point out that there is a revolution in military affairs, and that indeed is the Pentagon's own phrase for it, because the technological changes mean inevitably a change in the way that wars are going to be fought and the impact that they have on society. It is right now true that technology is enabling the West to slaughter more or less indiscriminately who they will. But as technology advances, wars are going to be more and more between technocratic elites, and you're going to see more and more targeted strikes against those elites rather than, I think, personally, civilian populations. But in the long run, the Pentagon has let loose, in a certain sense, a monster with agencies like DARPA and so on and so forth. Now the problem is all this technology is proceeding apace. The costs of entry technologies are lowering, and now that means the field could proliferate with any number of players, some of whom are not even identifiable nation states. So this is a true sea change, and InfoWars has it exactly right. And certainly, please don't get me wrong, I'm not endorsing all the views of Alex Jones or his website or analysts, but this is really a very, very good article. It's well thought out, and I thought I'd bring it to your attention because these are important changes that are coming down the pike. And again, my own personal point of view, folks, is that nothing that the elites are going to be able to do is going to stop this technological progress. I just don't think that this is feasible. They're going to try. I'm not going to say that they're not going to try. But I don't think it's entirely feasible to think that it's going to stop, or they're even going to be very successful in channeling all of it. Because my word, if we go back to the example that the atomic bomb posed at the end of World War II, the United States had a monopoly, obviously, at that time. But already you find in papers that were being discussed in the Council on Foreign Relations and so on and so forth, the concern for how do we prevent this technology from getting out of the monopolistic hands of the United States. And of course, by 1949, it already had. Russia had acquired the bomb. Very shortly thereafter, Britain and France had acquired the bomb. So in other words, the technology, like it or not, in spite of the best efforts to keep the genie in the bottle, the technology proliferated to the point that now we have nations like North Korea, India, China, South Africa at one point, certainly Israel, possibly Iran, South Korea, any number of nations in the world either have the technology or are already covert nuclear powers. So this effort failed, and I think we have to draw the lesson from history that efforts to keep other technologies out of different hands and from proliferating, that those efforts are going to fail as well. The only thing that they might be successful at is this legislation and the intellectual property business and stifling discussion. But even that, I think ultimately they're going to fail at. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that article. I hope that you enjoy reading the article over at Alex Jones, and we'll see you on the flip side, folks. Bye-bye.